sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Here I am. I wanted to surprise you this time and not be there dancing because I know some of my dancing moves have causes you to reflect back on my Chippendale dancing days. And when that happens, some of you, I say it every time, you stumble in your walk with the Lord. So I thought I would not put myself out on their public display for too long in the morning. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Everybody, good to have you. Anybody hungover from this Trump speech last night? Did you have a drinking game? Producer Chad and I watched it together, and our drinking game was drink. That was it. We just said we went to go drink, and that's what we did. The Sazerac Rye was the drink of the choice last night in the House of Lakey Estate cigar room, and I went through a few cigars because it was a long speech. They weren't that long cigars. They were not Churchills or anything like Double Toros or anything. They were very nice cigars. But a bottle of Sazerac Rye. I think we disposed of most of it. It was okay, all of it. It was a good day. Anyway, welcome to the House of Lakey. It's the Lakey Unleashed streamcast, and I'd love to hear from all of you this morning. Some of you already commenting. I see the good mornings coming in already in the chat room. Now, you're all part of the chat room. It used to be back in the radio days, I had a chat room that some old-time fans had put together, and they were usually drunk and salty and just kind of the old fellows you picture hanging at the donut shop in a small town in the morning. That was the guys that put it together. They gave me access to a chat room. Well, now we have a chat room. We've those guys are probably they already 1 foot in the grave and another foot on a banana peel. So now we have a real chat room. It's a chat room everywhere you're at. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, X, YouTube, all of these places you can comment. And when you do, it shows up right here into our stream on the studio. So feel free to jump into the conversation throughout the course of the morning. We have a question of the day. Question of the day. You ready for this? What was your grade for the speech? Anybody want to join in that conversation with us? What was your question of the day? What was your grade? Sorry, I'm reading comments. I'm doing everything. What grade do you give the Trump speech last night? Do you give it an A, a B, a C, a D, an E? I'm not sure any great news was broken. I think we kind of knew the direction of the speech. But I think the new story is the Democrats just being unable and unhappy and godless people. I mean, I want to go through the list of the things that I just noted, top of my head, that they couldn't stand for. I mean, disagreements are fine. You can disagree with the president. You can disagree with his policy on tariffs, and you can disagree with a lot of things. But there's got to be some decency if you're a human and you're not just some godless soul that you can stand up when a little boy is 13. I heard his voice this morning. He's like a grown man. He's a deeper voice than I do. The Dems just crossed their arms and huffed and puffed. The little young man from DJ, I think is his name, from Texas, that is a survivor of brain cancer. You can see the scar on his head. He's gone to 900 different police departments and become an honorary cop. It's his dream in life. And last night, there you see the new director of the Secret Service, Mr. Current, there, and that's the guy that was also famously pictured next to Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, getting him off the stage. He's now our Secret Service director. He makes him an honorary member of the Secret Service. Again, you can hate if you want, and many Democrats do, the orange man, the Donald J. Trump, but this is a new level of derangement you saw on display last night. What you saw last night shows sick people, and I mean that. John Hickenlooper, if you're in Colorado listening to me, Michael Bennet, you're my U.S. senators, you guys have proved that you're either sick in the head or controlled by demonic forces. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but if you can't stand up and clap for a kid that's getting the honor of his life, he's 13 years old, brain cancer survivor, he becomes an honorary member of the Secret Service, and you can't stand up for that and honor the kid, then you're a sick and demented person. And probably again, I think they really exorcism is actually what maybe, and I'm not actually joking here. There may be a spiritual thing that has oppressed these people that goes beyond just political differences. Political difference is one thing. You can have political difference. We had plenty with Barack Obama. I had plenty with Joe Biden. But if you have to act the way these Democrats acted last night, is there anybody that they're buying in America? I think producer Chad said over 70%, close to 70% of Americans liked the speech, and that's a CBS poll. So it probably means 86% approved of it. And the Dems sat there and acted like asswipes and just saying assholes. That's what they acted like. And it was really a despicable display by the Democrats. If you're out there watching this stream and you'd like to defend the Democrats' behavior, feel free to jump into this conversation. But there was no defense for the behavior. As far as the speech, when you go through the nuggets of the speech, I think the only breaking news moment that something we might not have expected. Let me read this. The Dems were so disrespectful, bunch of idiots last night. Glad Al Green was thrown out. What a putz he is. I mean, but he's an idiot. But if the Democrats want to have an unshaven, demented fool like Al Green waving a cane at the president, if that's the face of their party, welcome to the Democrat Party. Keep it going. Keep Al out there. It's kind of like if you want, did you see Nancy Pelosi? She was drooling. I don't know if she wiped her mouth. I don't know if she's had a stroke or the Botox has caused her to not be able to keep the spittle in her mouth. But it was a despicable sign by the Democrats. I think that's the news. The news is these Democrats seem to have learned absolutely nothing. And again, I'll say this, political disagreement is one thing. We can all have political disagreement. You can disagree with me. I can disagree with you. I can disagree with the governor or the president or the congressman. Again, I don't agree with myself 100% of the time. You can be married and you don't agree with your spouse 100% of the time. But what you saw last night was on display. That's the news story. The news cycle of the day is the behavior by the Democrats. I mean, holding up a sign that says Musk steals. Can somebody tell me what Musk stole? I don't know what he stole. I looked at my garage. My cars were still there. Car was still there. So I don't know what he steals. But they're holding up these signs made from popsicle sticks that were left over by Joe Biden in the White House, and they're just dumb signs. False. It was really. If I were a Democrat last night. And again, I say this, and I think I can say this. I don't want to be a Democrat, but because I like God and I like my country. But it was a sick display last night. It was a shameful display for America to see this. Again, you can disagree with Trump politically. I think the news of the speech, the only big news is that the guy that was the mastermind of the bombing in Afghanistan for that disgraceful withdrawal that were humiliated and probably was the actual trigger of why Putin decided he could invade Ukraine and why Hamas did the attacks against Israel, and all of the stuff was because of that disgraceful withdrawal from Afghanistan by the Democrats and demented Joe Biden. It was an embarrassing moment for America. And also, you also have to remember, after those 12, 13 Americans died there at Abbey Gate, Joe Biden did nothing. There was no retaliation. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing out there that he did to retaliate. He brought the dead bodies home and said, it's all good, we're out of Afghanistan. That was just a cost of war because these people don't value human life. I'm going to say something shocking. This is how horrified I was. If that little kid that wanted to be a Secret Service agent got a Secret Service badge, if that kid would have been aborted and never brought into the planet, the Democrats would have stood and applauded and said, we have another baby sacrificed to the altar of Baal. But because the kid has survived 13 years, and because the kid has now become an honorary Secret Service member, the Democrats can only cheer for aborted children. That's how sick and twisted this party is. Mark my words, quote Jimmy Lakey on that. Last night, the only children that the Democrats probably would have cheered as an aborted one. You had a young man who has a 4 point. I didn't know you can get a GPA above a 4.0. That's how bad of a student I was. Young man's got like a 4.644 GPA. I didn't even know it went higher than a 4, but evidently it does. He wanted to go to West Point, and he gets his West Point appointment. The president says, your appointment has been approved, young man. The kid's face drops, his surprise in his face. And the Democrats sat on their asses. These are despicable people. I go back to the Bible, and again, there's been times of political opposition. We can all have disagreement, but what we're doing, and I mean this sincerely, after watching that display last night, when the Bible says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities and spirits of darkness, what you saw on display last night, from your senator to my senator, if you're in Colorado, John Hickenlooper, Michael Bennett, these were people oppressed by a spirit of darkness. When you cannot stand up on your feet and clap for a young man who survived cancer, becomes an honorary Secret Service, when you can't stand up and applaud, a gentle applause for a young man that gets a West Point appointment, when you can't stand on your feet, when Lakey and Riley, murdered by an illegal alien, allowed in here by the stupid policies of Joe Biden and the Democrats, and her family is there, and you can't stand up and cheer for that and just greet her family and say, we're glad we passed this act. It's signed by the president. It's law of the land, the Lakey and Riley Act. First thing he decided, you can't do that. You're an evil and an oppressed person, and I really believe under some kind of a demonic stronghold. I mean, that's how bad it was last night. The little girl from the Houston, Galveston area, her mom was there. She was attacked by a criminal, illegal, I believe, tied up under a bridge, tortured there, and then murdered. I think she was like 9 years old, if I recall. The mom is sitting there, and they name a wildlife reserve in Galveston, Texas, after her because she was a lover of wildlife and animals, and they name a preserve there after her. If you can't stand up and clap for that, you really need to check your soul. If I were, and I'll use my senators as an example. If I were Michael Bennett and John Hickenlooper, I really believe I just have to go. You should be finding a counselor or a priest today. Again, political opposition is one thing, but what you saw on display last night was not political opposition. I believe it's just demonic oppression because these people, again, if they would have heard that little girl had been aborted in the abortion clinic, they would have said, mom's body, mom's choice. But because she was tied up and tortured under a bridge by an illegal and gets a garden or a wildlife preserve named after her, suddenly we can't clap for that. We only clap if they're aborted coming out of the womb, baby. Then the Democrats get really excited. Sacrifice them at the altar of Baal, and they get really pumped up. But other than that, we're not going to clap for these kids. The girl that had a brain injury, right side of her body paralyzed. Remember this one? I believe she was sitting next to J.D. Vance's wife, and it was she got smashed in the head with a volleyball by a boy with his twig and berries, and we were talking a biological boy playing girl sports, and it ended her sports career in high school, paralyzed her on the right side of her body. And it was an example of why boys' biological boys should not be playing in girls' sports. And the Democrats couldn't even stand up for that. I mean, the girl that was outed, there was a young lady that she was deep faked, and basically they passed around porn videos or porn photos of her that were created by AI. They were not true. And he was talking about an act that would stop that kind of stuff and criminalizing even further with bigger penalties. That the Democrats couldn't even stand for that. Again, if you want to have policy difference with the president of the United States, more power to you. But just those few things that I've mentioned, all 5 or 6 here that I've already mentioned, it's a sign of not Trump derangement syndrome. I truly, and I mean this, and tell me I'm wrong here, and tell me I'm not on track here, but I really believe what you saw last night was more than Trump derangement syndrome. I think you saw people that are controlled by some spirit of darkness that you couldn't cheer for some of those good stories. You can't cheer that the guy that bombed the Abbey Gate was the mastermind of that. It was announced he's right at that moment on a flight coming to America, and you couldn't cheer for that. I mean, you don't have to cheer for tariffs, all that stuff. But the fact that they sat there like that, I just don't think it helped the cause for the Democrats. And I think if you're a Democrat, you should be ashamed and embarrassed. And producer Chad said 76%, I think is a CBS poll of immediately on CBS have approved of the speech. So it was a bad look for the Democrats and a bad look. And hey, Democrats, if you're listening, forget everything I said. Just keep that old fool Al Green running out there, waving his cane and cursing like a drunk homeless man on the streets of Houston. To do that, keep sending him out there. He's the face of your party. Keep sending Nancy Pelosi out there. You know, she kept wiping her mouth, drooling. I mean, I throw spittle because I'm talking the whole time. I mean, she had a handkerchief on the end of her cane. And if you see the video, she's wiping her chin the whole time because I think the Botox has finally taken away some muscle or something. She can't keep it in her mouth. It was a crazy display. Give me your thoughts. The question of the day, what are the grades that you give? A, B, C, D, E? Again, as far as news, I'm not sure there's any breaking news on that. Maybe the terrorists getting arrested. Zelensky's coming back to the table. We knew that was coming. If there was, as far as news stories, there is no breaking news policy that I saw that anything is epic. But these human interest stories and just celebrating America and celebrating the fact that celebrating the fact that a kid's going a honorary Secret Service agent or West Point appointment, and you could celebrate that. In fact, they couldn't is really just shows who they are. Tell me I'm wrong. Jump in. You can jump in on the chat rooms and all the platforms. Where I'm 3 or 4 Facebook pages right now, reaching thousands of people throughout the day. You've got the YouTube. Jim says it's scary that each of those Democrat reps and senators get to select one nominee each year for each service academy. Well, that actually does kind of work out all right, because the kids wanting to go to the service academies and serve are usually pretty good kids. They really are. They're pretty good kids, and so they get that appointment. So that's the least of our worries, I think, with him. Letting Trump get credit for derangement syndrome. I'm not sure that's not a complete sentence, is it? That's not a complete sentence. I don't know what that says. Anyway, what grade do you give the President's Trump speech last night? A, B, C, D, E, F. What is the grade that you give? Love to hear from you and jump into the conversation in our chat rooms. All right, let me bring in author and historian Richard C. Lyons. He's joined us before. Give his take on the speech. How are you, Richard? Nice to have you back.
I'm doing great, Jimmy. How are you today? Much better for hearing the speech last night, actually.
It was a great speech. I think Britt Hume, who's usually kind of moderated in his reply, his immediate comment was, this was an epic moment for Trump. It was a long speech, but it was an epic. And he says, if you don't think there's a colossus in politics in our generation, it is Donald J. Trump. I said this, and I want to give your thoughts. I said the breaking news of the speech wasn't policy or anything. It was kind of a lot of stuff we already knew. But what we saw on display last night by Democrats, unable to celebrate some real basic things and basic things that would make all of us happy, maybe some of us tear up at times. The kid getting his Secret Service appointment, the boy getting the West Point appointment, the Lake and Riley family for having a bill named in her honor, the little girl that got a wildlife preserve in Galveston named after her after she was tied up and tortured by illegals. The fact that the Democrats couldn't stand for anything, that it was a really unbelievable display. Give me your thoughts, your analysis.
Well, I think if we look at the last several years, Jimmy, back to 2016 when they began, or even 2015 when they began to attack Donald Trump, and here he is after the last 8 years when a lot of people in that audience were Democrats like Adam Schiff and Alexander Vindman, who worked very hard to create a coup to get him out of office his first administration, and then an impeachment to do the same. And they exercised all the lawfare over the 4 years that he was out of office. And to see him back at the podium triumphant, and then for them to behave like spoiled little brats that didn't, rat out the kid on the playground and have him in the principal's office, right? I mean, they're like a lot of little children. They're very spoiled, it seems to me. You have to be able to credit your country, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it was amazing. Even President Trump, he took some jabs at him. The one critique I would have, at one time he said, Joe Biden, the worst president. I think that was, I would have stayed on the high road. I think the rest of the speech was okay. There were some fun jabs. But naming Joe Biden, I could have done without that. I told producer Chad, we were watching it together. And I said, yeah, we could do without that. And he and I both agreed on that. But overall, he even invited at one point, looked at the Dems and said, I could cure cancer and you guys wouldn't cheer for me. But for just this night, could we come together and celebrate America? And they didn't take the invitation. They were in no mood to celebrate. Do you think in their mind is this they hate this guy so much and they failed in their attempts to take him out, lock him up for the rest of his life? Is it just their hatred for Trump? Is it just their lack of? Is it just they're stunned by the shock and awe of the last 40 days? What do you think was the root of all that?
Well, this is the main subject of my book, Shadows of the Acropolis, Jimmy. The Democrats for 100 years built their own castle keep in the administrative state. It is their source of power and wealth. The Democrat Party that you see, which are the senators in the House of Representatives, the administrative state has been their wholly owned subsidiary. Either the administrative state is owned by the Democratic Party or the Democratic Party is owned by the administrative state. It depends on your point of view. But what the problem the Democrats did, they stowed all the wealth and power within the executive office prerogative. So when they knew what a threat Trump was his first administration, because he knew that. In his second administration, they're watching him act through Elon Musk, act through the courts, right, and act as the executive. And the Democrats can't do anything about it because they stowed all the power of the administrative state in that office. So it's really ironic. They're watching their administrative state be undone through the power they gave the office. So I think they know this fully. And when you saw Nancy Pelosi's face or Chuck Schumer's or Adam Schiff's, and they don't know how to react. It's because their power base in Washington, D.C. is under threat. So when you see all this money rolling out of the EPA in the last days of the Biden administration, all that money was promised to Democrats. And all that money was just frozen in bank accounts and is going to be pulled back. So to them, this is catastrophic. Wealth and power are the same thing. So whether you're pushing money out of Washington, D.C. through legislation that's going through an agency and then do an NGO and then do a nonprofit, these things, it's all their power base and it's their wealth. And Trump is taking it away for the good of the American taxpayer.
I think that's a fantastic analysis, because I asked the audience when I first said it, I said, anybody know what it looked like they went around the Oval Office when Biden there picked up all of his old popsicle sticks and made signs to hold up in the air and waved them. And they got all Joe.
Sorry, that's hysterical.
Yeah, they got Joe Biden's popsicle sticks. But the one that said Musk steals, and I couldn't figure out, I asked the audience, what did Musk steal? And now I realize that they think Musk is stealing. He's stealing their gravy train. He's stealing
their
money.
They think it's their money. Yeah. That's their perception. If they can take it from us, it's their money.
Yeah. That's what Musk stole. Musk stole their NGOs of power and funding, and the gravy train that people like Stacey Abrams, who never even served in Washington, D.C., but she's been a good little girl, and let's give her $2 billion. And she only had $100 a year before, but let's give her $2 billion. Walk us back in history. You've written the book, and again, Richard C. Lyons. I know some people don't watch the show. They just listen to it. It's Richard C. Lyons, author of The DNA of Democracy and Shadows of the Acropolis, the DNA of Democracy series. Walk us through in history, give us an overlay of this as a kind of a parallel or a similar time to what?
It had been a similar time to, I suppose it could be parallel to what happened to Rome when the power of the Senate or the people's representatives was taken slowly through the civil wars of Rome and given to one person. It went from being ruled by many representatives to being ruled by one party of one man. So when you see all these administrators, administrative agencies, all that power used to be with the people's representatives, but it's been closed off, walled off in the administrative state purposefully by the Democratic Party for the last 100 years. So that all the prerogatives you see Trump exercising now were set up to be the prerogatives of FDR or LBJ or Barack Obama. And while that was the case, while Democrats are in power in the executive branch, everybody on the Democrat side is happy. But if a Republican or a conservative looks at our Constitution and knowing that the administrative state has no enumerated power in our Constitution, but that they hold all the power, when you see a conservative deal with that and try and disempower it and give power back to the taxpayer, power back to the people's representatives, power back to localities and states and individuals, that drives Democrats crazy because they were thriving on the concentration of power over 100 years, wealth and power concentrated in Washington, D.C., where they could take it and use it.
The voice again of Richard C. Lyons. Richard, it's important for us to kind of look at the DNA of our democracy, the DNA of democracy. That's what you've written about. And
Yeah.
it's important for us to just to understand what we were watching last night is not necessarily just a snapshot of our time, but there's a parallel. There's other things to learn from it. And of course, Rome fell. Great empires often fall, and they fall because they don't recognize the moment they're living in and do a course correction. Are we watching a course correction that prevents us from meeting the fate of many great empires?
I think we are, because it is personified in one man who has been in a struggle, as we said earlier, Jimmy, since 2015, to carry out this will to when he says make America great again, what I'm hearing is make America conservative again, right? Ronald Reagan attempted that, but couldn't do it because many Republicans had cachet in the administrative state. That's what the Democrats do. They allow you a program here, a program there. But if you attack the administrative state as a Republican, as a rhino, that's a terrible thing to do. What Donald Trump has done is first he defeated the Clintons, he defeated the Bushes, he defeated the Obama coalition, he defeated Joe Biden. He's also defeated the rhino aspect of the Republican Party. And those rhinos were against him in his first term. As a conservative, they were against him because the rhinos aren't conservative.
Yeah.
And they all have cachet in the administrative state.
Watching it, I've been thinking they got to get some stuff through Congress, and Congress is slow, and the Senate is slow, and it's very slow process to get things through there. But I think you're right. The anger last night wasn't because of legislative defeats, and they passed things through the House and the Senate. The anger last night was, they can fight back in the legislature, but they can't fight back against what he's been doing to them, and they have no recourse, and they're left powerless. So, in a sense, in the first 100 days or the first couple of months of office, this is probably right now more important, because even if you pass legislation, if you still have the bureaucratic state in place to undermine it or redirect it, legislation is just a piece of paper that has a president's signature if the people that carrying out on a day-to-day basis are still evil people.
That's very correct. And so there's many things that Trump is doing. He is working through Elon Musk and Doge. And whenever his authority is challenged, now, Jimmy, this is the great thing about it. There were 55 lawsuits launched immediately. He can't do it. He can't fire federal employees. He can't get into the Treasury and know what money we're spending. He doesn't have the authority to do that. Well, all these lawsuits are going to end up backfiring on the Democrats and administrative states. They're all going to funnel through the appeals courts, and if they're not taken out there, they'll be taken out at the Supreme Court because it is his authority. That's where the Democrats put the authority, in that office. And that's why Republican presidents are always attacked. They get them on their hind legs, right? They get them on their heels, I should say, through the media and so forth. So it's multi-track. He's doing the Doge. The lawsuits are going to work in the favor of conservatives and backfire on Democrats. And then this reconciliation bill will reduce spending, which is the Democrats' bailiwick. That's their money, right?
Yeah.
In their conception, that's their money. And they're going to be unleashing the economy, which Democrats hate because the better the economy does, the less people need Democrats to hand them money.
Yeah. Richard C. Lyons, my guest. Always a pleasure, Richard. We talk about the DNA of democracy, Shadows of the Acropolis. Give a quick plug away on the books.
Sure. You can find me at richardclyons.com. You can find my books at Amazon anytime you like. You can find them at retail stores if you request them.
Richard, I appreciate you always, my friends. Thanks for the perspective. I like the analysis there that when they're holding up the sign that says Musk steals, what they really mean is Musk steals their power. All right, good to have everybody here on the program. Coming up at just about right now, Steve Laffey. Then coming up at 8:45 in the Mountain time zone, 10:45 Eastern time, is going to be Troy Anderson, all joining us here on the Lakey Unleashed streamcast. Glad to have you here. A quick reminder to all of you that there's so many different platforms out there. That if you're in the Instagram, hello, we were a little late on the Instagram. We hit a wrong button there. We fixed that. But Rumble, good morning, Rumble. How are you doing, all of our Rumblers out there? And don't forget all the Facebook pages. If you want to follow the Facebook during the day, now we're on Facebook.com/RedWaveAmerica, Facebook.com/The Media Equalizer, and then, of course, my personal Facebook page, Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. That's the one that I post on and put stuff out during the daytime. So all of you Media Equalizer fans and Red Wave America fans, we're glad to be on the Facebook page. Thanks to our friend Brian Maloney. But that's not where I post throughout the day. Also, I'm trying to be more active on the Twitter and more active on the Truth Social. But if I'm going to post something, it's a lot of times just so simple to get it on the Facebook. And I'm just old school like that. I know I got to be better at all these platforms, and I'm working on it. But I've got a lot of irons in the fire. It'd be good to have all of you here again. Steve Laffey about to step into the room, and then Troy Anderson joins us at 45, and we will dive into continue with Troy some content and analysis of last night's speech and thoughts on that. He's written a book called The Trump Code. But right now, Steve Laffey and I are going to go a different direction. We're going to mix it up a little bit, and a lot of speech talk today, but Steve Laffey and I are going to dive into something else. Hello, Steve Laffey. Good morning, SteveLaffey.com.
Hey, Jimmy, great to talk to you this morning. I think things are growing in leaps and bounds for you. Rumble, I have to figure that one out too, I suppose, but
Rumble's easy. Rumble's the YouTube that conservatives don't get thrown off of, and we're on YouTube as well. Yeah,
there's so many now. There's so many. I just don't know what to say.
Yeah. Rumble got created because of a lot of the content that was getting kicked off and shadow banned by Google, and YouTube is over there. Rumble's a platform that also, like Dan Bongino, put some money into and is on the board of directors. So that's where it came from.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Steve Laffey, good morning to you, sir. Let's dive in. I said last night the real news of the speech wasn't any policy. The news was the Democrats' reaction to the speech, which they should have just let the speech be the speech, but their reaction when you can't cheer for a little boy that's cancer survivor getting a Secret Service badge, and you can't cheer for a kid getting a West Point appointment with a 4.664 thing. You can't cheer for a girl that was held hostage and tortured, having a wildlife reserve named after her in Galveston. When you can't cheer for this for the border security guy that border agent that was recognized for heroic acts, when you can't cheer for that, at that point, you can hate the orange man and his policy all you want, but when you can't cheer for some of these things, it's just, you know what, they're Americans, and God bless that little kid that survived cancer. There's something deep wrong in your soul, I think, Steve, when you just can't come together and clap for that.
The inability of our country to bring anything back together of any sense of normalcy that existed before Barack Obama, let's say, or certainly during the Clinton administration, to bring it anywhere back as the country continues to split apart, split up, whatever you want to say. People don't invite each other to dinners. People can't speak to each other about different politics. It's brutal, and it comes. Well, it started really with Obama, right? But Trump has made it worse, but it doesn't mean anything about like last night. Or on the other side, wasn't it Mrs. Green who screamed something out when Biden was speaking, or some other Republican guy? I mean, to scream things out, or this guy, Al Green, I thought Al Green was a soul singer. I don't know. He was a congressman too, but jokingly, but for someone to scream stuff out, interrupt the president, or not, it's bizarre, but it's a reflection of America that's splitting up. It's a reflection of our education system, as I go back to every time we can in the show, that has destroyed young people and even people up to 35, 40 who don't even understand or care that they're not getting Social Security. They don't care. They pay into it. They don't care. They don't know. They don't care. They don't even know they're not paying in 6.5%. They're paying in 13%. They don't even know.
Yeah. Steve Laffey, if you're just listening, some people are working right now, like walking and doing chores and not sitting and watching a television screen or a computer monitor. And so they don't know that that's the voice of Steve Laffey. His website is SteveLaffey.com. Steve, let's dive into a couple of the stories. We're going to talk more about the Trump speech throughout the course of the program. You sent me something from the Wall Street Journal. A lot of, we heard how many times did Joe Biden try to forgive student debt? Got struck down by the Constitution, by the Supreme Court, saying you can't do that, not the Constitution. You sent me the headline that, hey, Americans with student loans are waking up to the reality that they got to pay these back or it becomes a ding on their credit score.
Well, the statistic is so mind-numbing that I have to say it out loud to people who don't have student loans. Let's say 43% of Americans have not, borrowers who owe payments and haven't resumed making them even though they're supposed to. 43%, Jimmy, not 4%, not 4.3%. Nearly half of the people who owe money. So think about what must have happened for them to be not knowing and not making the payments. They don't get their emails. They don't see the news. They thought maybe they were forgiven by Biden, who tried unconstitutionally several times, managed, I think, forgive about $180 billion of the $1.7 trillion, which is disastrous. But now because they're going to go buy a car and they walk into an auto dealership and they thought they had a credit score of 720. The perfect one is 850 that nobody gets, right? But and 720 is fine, but now it's 620. And it's happening all over America. And you're reading the article, and here's some of the people. Here's Mr. Garcia. I'm devastated. Maybe it's Mrs. Garcia. I don't know. I'm devastated. A 39-year-old nurse from Modesto. It's like having your whole life put in limbo. She owes $16,000 that she had in abeyance for all these years. So a number of points. It goes back to the fact of, when did this happen? Right? It happened under Trump. So people know he started it. It just is what happens with Republicans. They start something really stupid, like closing down the country and then postponing the payments of student loans. And then the Democrats come in and they make it 10 times worse. They made $186 billion go away, which means every plumber listening to this, everybody who paid off their loans, you paid for it. You paid for the schlock who went to CSU from out of state, from Nebraska, paid $50 grand a year, borrowed $120,000, or their parents from Student Plus loans or whatever it was, and you're paying for it with the national debt. That's what's going on. What would we do with $186 billion that we didn't forgive over time? We could do a lot with. How about paving some roads? So this is unbelievable that people are this dumb and don't know what's happening. Remember, they're in the age group. The people who don't know what's happening in the age group I talk about all the time, they're 39. You go through the article. Here's a guy 28. So, yeah, here's another guy, Jack Matthews, wherever he is. He noticed this month he hasn't paid it back. So where are we in the country where this is actually happening? Like, where could we possibly be? We've made no improvement of trying to get these student loans down. We've made no decisions about who to loan the money to, who not loan the money to. We still have these Parent Plus loans running amok, where parents are signing off on kids who can't possibly pay it back. You and I have discussed many solutions. I've been on with Mr. Cuomo on News Nation discussing 5-6 different solutions to this. It's now nearly $2 trillion of student loans.
Wow.
But nothing's being done about it. And now we have people that are this dumb that don't know. It seems impossible. See, I used to think it was impossible, Jimmy. I used to think that this wasn't true, that the person actually knew and just wanted to tell the Wall Street Journal, I didn't know. I don't think that anymore.
I took a loan, but I didn't know I had to actually pay the thing back.
I think they don't know because they don't keep up, and they're totally surprised. And these are the people, when you see an advertisement, there's an advertisement goes around now when I try to watch YouTube, and it's one of the many things they repeat all the time. But it's like somebody can help you go to your Visa account, go to your MasterCard account, and you don't know you're paying 36 monthly things for $6, $8, whatever, and they could take it away and get rid of it for you. People don't know what's on there. Like, that's an ad where someone's making millions for a company doing this, where anybody could do it. What am I doing? I'm in the wrong business. I was in the wrong business. We need to help really stupid people chew gum and walk at the same time. That's what we got to do.
Public service announcement. If you take out something called a loan, you do need to pay that back. And maybe you should then look at the wisdom as to whether that loan is necessary. Maybe you could go to the in-state school, get in-state tuition, etc. And don't major in underwater basket weaving or social services if you're going to take $100,000 out of the loan. Get a real job that's going to pay bills. Steve, another story off the beaten path today, because everybody's talking about the Dem reaction, the Trump speech, etc. Again, the breaking news not in policy last night. It was really the reaction of the Democrats just sitting on their hands. But let's go to Germany. Germany is an interesting country. CBS 60 Minutes had the story about how they're really clamping down. I mean, if you insult someone or call someone fatty or dumb, like we just call people dumb. In Germany, you and I would go to jail because we have insulted people. But Germany just had an election, and I'll let you pick it up from there, because they've had a kind of a changing of the guard, and they're dealing with a lot of debt as well.
Yes. Now, here's the deal that people 10 years from now may rue. This is sort of the success of what's happening with the Trump NATO, the Trump whatever, tariff stuff, right? Because Germany had an election last Sunday and a guy named Merz won, and he's more right of center than the other people and so forth, right? But he's going to unite not with what they call the far right, which I can't figure out why they're far right, but nobody in America really can, but they're always far right if they don't like immigration, I guess. So anyway, but the big news is that their debt to GDP is about 60%. And they have something called a debt break. We've talked about the Swiss debt break as a good model for America on this show several times. But they are now going to bust the debt break. And they're going to go spend a lot on defense and a lot on infrastructure and a lot on whatever they have to spend on, which two major things they got to spend on. So this is actually really, really big news. You will see now other countries, Greece can't copy it, that debt's too big, but you will see other people now, they are now shifting away from America. They're going to handle things themselves the way France does. And the implications are really big. I think you'll see Germany start to grow again. Germany's been the dead group for a long time. They're going to start to grow again. And here's the other thing people should realize. They're not going to buy defense equipment from Boeing or Lockheed or America. They're going to be like France. They're going to buy it from themselves. So this is why Boeing stock continues to go down. This whole sea change that we will come to regret, I think, is the other countries now are saying, forget it. Here come the tariffs. Here comes the NATO stuff. We're going to do it ourselves. And Germany, being very industrious, right, having the ability to do this, will now start to do it, along with the UK and other countries. But the ominous thing is that now you're going to have 10 years from now, 6 years from now, whatever, Germany may have nuclear weapons. Remember, they're not going to talk about we can't mention what happened in the past anymore. They, like Japan, are getting ready to go. Now, if you go back through history, when the Germans and the Japanese got ready to go with military spending and built it way up, we had a couple of world wars.
Got a couple of world wars out of that.
This is the problem with America not being the world's superpower. And here's the other thing I talked to you about 2 months ago on this show, Jimmy. The dollar's going to start to go down. And it is. It's down 3% this year. Now, remember, currencies like the United States of America don't drop 20%. We're not Turkey. The dollar is going to continue to go down, in my belief. And in the game we're playing, here's the real game we're playing in the confidence game. This is like, the famous movie, The Sting, a real confidence game. We take in $5 trillion of revenue for America. We owe not $36 trillion in national debt. We owe $135 trillion, Social Security unfunded. The 5 to 135 is the worst ratio of all time for any world superpower in the history of mankind. No. The confidence game is going to end. The dollar will collapse. And I'll say it again. Go back to Nixon's speech in 72. We got 71. You won't notice it unless you leave America. Now, here's the question for everybody. The tariffs come in. Who handles these tariffs better in a weakening dollar better? Really rich people or really poor people? I would surmise that really rich people or financial experts like me who have a lot of euros, a lot of pounds, not many dollars, lots of precious metals, handle it better than the middle class, which is going to get totally hosed again, but seems to, right now, okay with what's happening. They won't be okay with what's happening with Canada if this stays. They won't. Yeah. I told you this last week. They won't be okay with no aluminum. They won't be okay with no cars. They won't be okay with higher prices.
Steve Laffey, it's always a pleasure. Going to get Troy Anderson coming up next. A pleasure, my friend. God bless you. I appreciate you. SteveLaffey.com, Laffey, SteveLaffey.com, SteveLaffey.com. Hey, welcome to the program, everybody. Question of the day: how do you grade the speech last night? A, B, C, D, E, F. Again, I'll say, as far as covering news breaking in the speech, I don't think there was a lot. A lot of it was just kind of Donald Trump rehashing and celebrating what he views are the accomplishments. I think the real story last night is the Democrats not being able to celebrate anything. They couldn't applaud anything, and I think it was a bad look for them. Of course, Al Green getting thrown out. That's the news story, I think, is just the Dems' behavior last evening. My opinion, you're in the chat rooms, YouTube, Rumble, whatever platform you're on. Send us a message, and it's right there. You can, anything you post on those feeds right now, if you're watching live, show up right here in the studio, and we try to put those on the screen. Real quick, before I go to Troy Anderson, I want to remind you that right now I'm looking out the studio this morning, and as I can see out the studio, it's a glorious day here in the great state of Colorado. I don't know where you're watching the program at or listening to it. Maybe you're watching in the afternoon. It's morning here, but whatever. Some people watch it throughout the day. Springtime starts to mean one thing as people head into summer. I was talking to Sherry Cree just the other day, realtor Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, and she said something happens about after Super Bowl. People have taken down the Christmas tree, their lights, and their now football's done, and they're kind of thinking, well, the next couple of months we should sell the house. The next couple of months we should start thinking about moving at the end of the school year. Or people just kind of start rethinking the real estate. They don't want to. A lot of stuff doesn't happen. So if you've been thinking of listing your home for sale in Colorado, I'm going to give you a heads up that right now inventory is low. It's low really almost across the board because people don't list their homes for sale. Now, people have to move all the time, have to buy homes, but it's all about the inventory, right? So there's a good likelihood that if you get your home listed sooner rather than later, you're going to beat that real estate inventory curve, and you're going to possibly sell that home quicker, maybe even for more money than you would, because there's not a lot of competition out there. So if you're ready to go, ready to sell, ready to rock and roll, I'd recommend you call Homes, just go to our website, homeswithsherry.com, for all your real estate needs. But again, once you get into the warmer months, there's a lot more inventory out there traditionally. But right now is a great time to be selling as a seller because, again, the buyers don't have a lot of inventory. Now, you may say, I'm not ready to do that right now. You still reach out to Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, and let her have a conversation. She believes that it's not just buying a house, selling a house, changing neighborhoods, changing states. She wants you to make the moves that the real estate can become generational wealth. Homeswithsherry.com, free consultation, conversation, strategy session, no pressure. And again, I don't care if you're in Colorado Springs, Aurora, Colorado, Denver, Colorado, Boulder, Wellington, Fort Collins, Greeley. You get the idea. Homeswithsherry.com. She's your lady. Homeswithsherry.com. Let me tell you a fun fact as well. Her focus is on giving back. So yeah, she wants to sell your home generational wealth. I've said it all. But she also donates a portion of her compensation to the charity of your choice. She also focuses on serving and reducing her compensation for military veterans and first responders. She wants to give back. You're going to enjoy getting to know Sherry. I know her family, fantastic people. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. I appreciate you giving her consideration. And again, seller's tip. Get it up on the market sooner rather than later, and there's less inventory, and therefore your home's probably going to move pretty quickly. It could, there's a lot of variables. So, by the way, another public service announcement. I mentioned Aurora. Sherry can make sure that you do not. She can make sure that you do not end up in a neighborhood with Trende Aragua. She'll make sure you're not in that bad neighborhood in Aurora. All right. There you have it. All right. He's been waiting patiently in the chat room or the green room. His name is Troy Anderson. I'm 3 minutes behind when I told his publicist I would have him on. Troy, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Oh, it's great to be on your show, Jimmy.
Great. You're the author of the Trump Code, Exploring Time Travel, Nikola Tesla, and the Trump Lineage. Glad to have you here. Let's start off with the speech last night. You are a Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist, and I just want to first of all get your thoughts on the speech last night. My perspective, not a lot of news was made on policy, but I've never seen such a display of petulance and just pouting that I saw last night on the Democrat side. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jimmy. I thought it was a great speech by President Trump. He sort of laid out all the amazing accomplishments he and his team are underway with now. But yeah, the Democrats, wouldn't stand, wouldn't applause, had the little signs, false, all kinds of things like that. It's sad. It's very sad to see that. I covered politics for 3 decades, and to see this massive division in our country and just lack of politeness, lack of respect is it's disturbing.
I gave my critique. I said the one thing I could have used President Trump not doing when he said Joe Biden, the worst president, he could have left Joe Biden's name out of it. I would have been fine with that. But he even then at one point, he said, I know you guys, if I cured cancer, he's being truthful, you guys wouldn't celebrate. But could you join me tonight for just a few moments and let's celebrate what we are doing? And even with that, he got hit with one hand, but he then gave the olive branch, and they just refused to do it. I just don't see how that's a good look for them. Again, you can not like the orange man and not like Donald Trump, but to not celebrate a kid that gets a Secret Service badge and survived brain cancer, the kid that goes to West Point, gets his appointment, the girl, the law that's going to be passed to protect the young lady who was deep faked into porn scenes in high school, and those are things that seemingly we could come together, and hatred of one person or political party shouldn't stand in the way. But we've crossed the Rubicon, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's just common decency to care about our fellow human beings and people who have been through these terrible tragedies and such, and not to applaud, not to stand, not to show anything. It just shows that the Democrats they're controlled by the deep state, I guess. There's some kind of top-down order. They're not supposed to do anything. They're not supposed to respond. So it's just the more they do this, the more the public becomes aware of what's really happening. These behind-the-scene power brokers and the hundreds of billions of dollars of taxpayer money wasted. And the war, this terrible war is taking place in Ukraine, and hundreds of thousands of deaths needlessly. So I think the Democrats are now being shown for who they really are.
We all send our people to Congress to represent us in our district, and it was interesting. And one of my observations also, it looks like they had different colors in the Democrat side. If they wore pink, they were standing for something. If they were black, they were they had this color coordination about these are our signs of protest inside the circle. And you're sitting there, what that was the Democrat caucus kind of orchestrating amongst themselves, as opposed to what I think Americans would like to see is, I don't care what you wear. Just listen and represent me in Washington, D.C., collude with your district, collude with your state, and find out what's best for us. Instead, they all had different color codes in their ties and their shirts, and the ladies wore pink. And they also, there's a whole bunch of montages that the last 2 days, they've all been in different interviews, and they've all said the same line. It included the S word, this is blank, this is S. And all of them in different interviews said the same thing. It's like, okay, here's the script. We're all going to say poop with an S word. And it's like they have their own little circle and they're colluding with each other. And we send them up there to not collude with each other, Republicans or Democrats. We send them up there to represent us and what is happening here.
Yeah. I mean, the mainstream media has been, in partnership with the Democratic Party. And we really saw this the last 4 years. And it's all based on sort of deception, lies, disinformation, psychological operations. And so now the cat's out of the bag, and people are seeing this for what it really is, that they're operating on a script. It's a top-down narrative, all controlled by behind the scenes by people who aren't elected. And so it's it's a tragic situation for our country.
Pulitzer Prize nominated journalist Troy Anderson is my guest. We'll talk about his book here in just a moment. It's called The Trump Code, Exploring Time Travel, Nikola Tesla, and the Trump Lineage. But let's dive into another story. As a journalist, I'm sure you found fascinating. I think all of the world found it fascinating. Is last week, Volodymyr Zelensky shows up into the White House, and it goes really well for about 40 minutes. And then the last 10 minutes of that thing go to hell in a handbasket. And Zelensky walks away being accused of not wanting peace. Zelensky walks away without a deal. And now Zelensky says, I'm ready for peace. I love America, and I want to reconvene and have another meeting. Give me your observations on this story. The last 72 plus hours, it has really just been fascinating.
Yeah. So when everybody watched that Oval Office meeting between Zelensky and Trump and JD Vance, they've been shocked by the nature of that meeting and how it fell apart and that kind of thing. But I think you need to take a look at that. Trump is the author of The Art of the Deal. He's a master negotiator, and we just saw that now. So I think that this was sort of part of his plan, and then when he cut off the funding for Ukraine within an hour and a half, wasn't it? That Zelensky, I want to cut a deal. You can have the minerals. We can bring peace to the world. So it just shows it was all about the money. Hundreds of billions of dollars wasted, hundreds of thousands of lives lost. This is what the Democrats are for. They're for the military-industrial complex. They don't care about human life. It's very tragic. It's pretty much one of the most evil things you could possibly do. But thank God that President Trump's been elected, and now he can help bring peace to this situation.
All right, let's dive into you, the six-time #1 best-selling author. You've written several books. Your most recent is called The Trump Code, and it's quite fascinating as you look through it, because you kind of outlaw it kind of brings to a crossroad biblical prophecy, history, geopolitics, and President Trump's role in all that. And so let's kind of dive into your book, The Trump Code, and I'll let you kind of set the lay of the land, and I'll ask some follow-up questions.
Yeah, so the Trump Code puts together this 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle of how President Trump fits into unfolding end-time events. And one of the things I really look at is these curious 19th century novels by Ingersoll Lockwood called the Baron Trump Collection. And the picture of the boy on the cover, this is written in the 1890s. The picture of the boy on the cover looks strikingly like Baron Trump. They just spell their names a little bit differently. And he lives in Castle Trump on Fifth Avenue in New York City, where Trump Tower now stands 130 years later. And he's guided by Don, the master of all masters, and they go on time traveling adventures. These are children's fantasy novels. And what's really caught people's attention,
these fantasy novels you're talking about date back to when? What was the year of them?
1890s. He wrote 3 of these books in the 1890s.
I'm sorry. I wanted to make sure that wasn't lost on the audience, that these books that have a character by the name of Baron Trump, spelled a little bit differently, at an address that's now where Trump Tower stands, and he's guided around by the great Don. These were written in the 1890s, and let's you continue. I just want to make sure that wasn't lost on anyone.
Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, there's been stories in the Daily Mail and Politico and Newsweek and videos on YouTube, got millions and millions of views. But what really caught people's attention is the final book's called The Last President. And in this book, this populist president is elected. It says the anarchists and the socialists converge on Castle Trump, shouting death to the rich man, and all kinds of chaos and mayhem protests break out. And so people have asked, is it sort of prophetic in nature, like like George Orwell's 1984, which, we're watching Big Brother, authoritarian state, that kind of thing today.
Talk about those books and go back in time when they were written back in the 1890s. Was the author of those purveying him that he's some kind of a prophet? Was he just writing children's books for fantasy? I mean, kind of take us back to the intent of those books and how they were marketed at the time.
Yeah, so Ingersoll Lockwood was a lawyer. He actually had a government appointment from Abraham Lincoln. He was consular general to Hanover, Germany, but really don't know too much about him. He was I think there was an obituary in the New York Times, talking about he was a somewhat prominent lawyer. But as far as we know, he didn't claim any kind of prophetic gift or anything like that. Maybe just it's one of those strange things. There's something mysterious about writing, and I write a lot about Bible prophecy. So of course you have all these prophets throughout the Bible. About a third of the Bible is prophetic in nature, and Bible scholars tell me about 2,000 of the Bible's 2,500 prophecies have all come true in exacting detail. I've spent 40 years studying this, and so there is something mysterious about writing. So can God, somehow maybe without even this guy even knowing, speak to us today from books in the 1890s? I guess he could.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Again, the name of the book is called The Trump Code, and it kind of a combo of how biblical prophecy intertwines turbulent times, the Trump presidency. If you're a student of biblical prophecy, is there some role? I mean, I remember, I think Russell Brand, the actor, just put out the theory that I'd heard several months ago after the Butler, Pennsylvania, that there's a biblical prophecy or a biblical ritual in which blood was put on a man's ear, and that would mean he's ready for to make the sacrifice. I think it came from Aaron. Russell Brand outlines this. A gentleman that I follow named Lance Wallnow tweeted this out and said, "What do you think of what Russell's saying?" And I've seen this floating around. The point that I get to in asking the question is, in your estimation, is Donald Trump and the current state of the United States of America, are we somewhere in a predictable line of biblical prophecy?
I think that God just intervened in human affairs with this election and sort of put a halt to this push towards this one world government. The Book of Revelation talks about the Antichrist, a one world government kind of system. So I think God just put a halt to that. We're on a pause essentially right now. The same thing that happened to ancient Nineveh. I did an interview with Billy Graham back in 2013, and he said when God sent Jonah the prophet to Nineveh toward of judgment, the king and the people repented, and he believed the same thing could happen again this time in America. And I was so inspired by that, we called for a national day of repentance. My second book, Trumpocalypse, it actually happened, this big event in the National Mall. 42 million people watched what was called The Return. And then we had this eclipse last March, went through all these towns called Nineveh. So I wrote a story called, is this our Nineveh moment, our chance to turn back to God? And then Americans went out in droves and voted for Trump. And so I think we're on this pause and we're seeing pockets of revival. So I think it's a very hopeful sign.
We have, I'm a simple guy when it comes to biblical prophecy. It says in the end days, we'll have wars and rumors of wars. We sure have our share of wars and rumors of war. Russia, Ukraine, the rumor of war with China invading Taiwan. We have Hamas and Israel. Walk us through some of the other things that maybe are actually, we think they're current world events, but they're actually fulfillment of prophecy that are maybe going on around right now.
Yeah. So the ones that Bible scholars are really looking at right now is called the War of Gog and Magog, Ezekiel 38-39. Russia and Iran, this coalition of nations, attack Israel. They're we sort of see that kind of situation potentially in the news. It's also called the Sixth Trumpet War from Revelation 9, where a third of humanity is killed. Perhaps that could be a nuclear war sometime during the tribulation. And the I think it's Psalm 9 war. And so those are the things we're looking at right now. I mean, you've seen the rebirth of Israel in 1948. The Bible seems to have predicted that. And it says that generation will probably see these things happen. And so we're sort of living in that time. But I think, God's given us a reprieve. He's looking to the church to really, spread the gospel, bring in as many people to the kingdom as possible. I think that's sort of where we are prophetically. And but we are sort of perhaps somewhere in these end time events that the Bible talks about.
You mentioned the war of Gog and Magog, which is Israel and Russia regions coming together and attacking Israel. It's fascinating that with this blow up with Zelensky in the White House last week, that now Putin has come out and says, listen, I will come out and I will negotiate and help get a deal between Iran and the United States of America. So it's kind of a weird alliance there. I mean, he can be helpful and keep us from nuclear war with Iran. I'm happy for that. But I just thought that was fascinating. And then you mentioned Gog and Magog, which are those two characters.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing is that all these nations, those ancient names for them in the Bible, but it talks about these ones that Bible scholars believe involve Russia and Iran and other nations in that area, and they're making pacts, they're making alliances, and so perhaps we're in that time, but just like Billy Graham saw, when Nineveh repented and turned back to God like we did a few years ago, and right before this election we called for 40 days of prayer, fast, and repentance. Millions of people, probably many didn't even know what we're doing, joined us in that, and we saw this God's intervention. And then we just went to we live in Orange County, we went to Saddleback Church, one of the biggest churches in the country, and they were calling for prayer, fasting, repentance, had a return gathering here a couple weeks ago. So I think there's something major going on in the body of Christ, and I think there's both things are happening at the same time, these acceleration of end time events, but also these pockets of revival that are breaking out around the world.
Let me get your thoughts. I watched the response to the speech last night of Trump. And I said this, and it may be shocking to some people just joining me, and maybe shocking to you. They couldn't celebrate and clap for the brain cancer survivor because Donald Trump was celebrating. They couldn't do this. And yet we're in a place in political history in America and political spectrum in America that if, let's say, that 13-year-old boy had not even survived the womb, had been sacrificed, I called it the altar of Baal at an abortion clinic, that would have been celebrated as a choice. So we're in such a backwards time that we can't celebrate the young man getting a West Point appointment right there in front of everybody with a 4.644 GPA, which I didn't even know was possible. We can't celebrate that. But we have a political party that would have celebrated had he never been born to go to West Point, because that would be called my choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. I mean, think about all the people that may have been aborted over the, last 50, 60 years, people that could have invented the cure of cancer or, all kinds of amazing things that God intended for their lives, and they're not here with us. And so, it's sad to see the Democrats act this way. And And I really wish we could somehow bring this country back together. We're all Americans. We love freedom. We love liberty. We need to break through this deception that the media and entertainment system has perpetuated upon the world, and sort of see through the evil's called good and good's called evil. The Bible told us to be like this, but also called us to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, and to see through the schemes of the devil.
Yeah. I respect your time again. The name of the book is called The Trump Code. I keep telling my audience, this is as a believer of Christ and follower of Christ myself, this is not necessarily a religious show. I have some very middle school kind of baseline humor at times, but I keep telling people sometimes we want to get our fist to right, because I was really angry last night at the Democrats. I was angry that they couldn't celebrate, but I always tell the audience here, sometimes rather than shaking our fist at Washington, D.C., or shaking our fist at Russia, realize that the Bible clearly says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities. Things are at work outside of our mind. And I thoroughly believe these people last night were not just controlled by Trump derangement syndrome. They had some kind of a spiritual oppression to not be able to celebrate that. There's a lot of the unseen out there that's happening around us, and sometimes we need to pause and reflect and say, wow, what's happening that I don't see, because what I see may be happening because of what I don't see.
Yeah, the Bible tells us we're in this great spiritual battle. There's the forces of God and the forces of the devil. There's this clash going on behind the scenes. We can't see it with our eyes, but physicists now tell us there's at least 10 dimensions, and that's essentially what the Bible says. There's these spiritual realms. These entities interact with us. They can put thoughts in our mind, and so we have to be aware of this great spiritual battle. And read our Bibles, go to church, fellowship, pray, fast, repent. These are all things that'll help you be victorious in this battle.
All right, the Trump Code. It's I want you to push the book, because I think it'd be a fascinating read for folks. I've had you on my radio show back in the terrestrial radio days. Now I've been unleashed from the bonds of corporate radios. Here we are on the Streamcast and across America now. The Trump Code. Tell us why it's so pertinent to read today, and set it up because some people have just joined us.
Yeah, so the Trump Code, it puts together this 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle of how Trump fits into unfolding end-time events, what the future holds. It explores these curious 19th century novels of Ingersoll Lockwood, the Baron Trump collection. It even talks about Nikola Tesla, Trump's connection to time travel, and Einstein, and theories of that nature. So it's a very fascinating book, but also the theme is this our Nineveh moment, our chance to turn back to God, all inspired by my interview with Billy Graham back in 2013. And so I think you'll be very inspired and enlightened by this book. It's a #1 bestseller multiple times. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website, troyanderson.us. Also great newsletters there.
troyanderson.us. Is that correct? troyanderson.us.
Yeah.
And the Trump Code is found at Amazon, anywhere fine books are sold.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's all over the place.
You got it. Troy, great conversation. I appreciate it. We'll have you back on sometime again soon. I appreciate you hopping on here. That's Troy Anderson. The book is called The Trump Code. troyanderson.us is a great website. You can find him. He's got a couple. Yeah, troyanderson.us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to wrap up the program. The final question of the day we have for you, though, is simply this. What did you give the speech last night? Most of you seem to come into the A level. Not a lot of breaking news in the speech last night, but I'm telling you, Amy says she gives it an A+. I think it was a great speech. It wasn't news breaking, but I thought it was a great speech celebrating the accomplishments, and the theme was the golden age of America is back upon us. And as he addressed the joint session of Congress, but the takeaway, I think, this is the news that, and we'll figure out, I think, in the water cooler. The only human I've spoken to this morning is producer Chad. I don't talk to Delilah in the morning. She didn't show up till after the show starts anyway. But it's just fascinating that we have Democrats acting so much. A boy gets admitted to West Point, the Democrats sit. Boy survives cancer and gets Secret Service appointment, the Democrats sit. Girl whose identity and transition was hidden from her parents, and they're fighting back for parental rights, the Democrats sit. A girl injured by a boy slamming a ball in her face because he was a biological boy playing girl sports, the Democrats sit. Girl was killed by illegals and gets a wildlife reserve named after her. The Democrats sat. Hero, a Border Patrol agent, Roberto Ortiz, recognized for his heroic acts, saving other people's lives. The Democrats sit. Man released from Russian captivity, sitting with his 95-year-old mother, and Joe Biden had left him stranded. The guy's free, and the Democrats sit barely applauding to any of these. Al Green, the old demented fool, you got to be pretty stupid to live in that guy's district and elect for him. He didn't even have any competition. In the last 2024, there was nobody. He ran unopposed, waving his cane and threatening, "You ain't got no mandate. You ain't got no mandate. You don't have a razor, sir." And you look like you're kind of maybe need a shower, is what he looked like. And I hope he's censured. And by the way, if they censure him, be careful. Producer Chad and I talked about this. Censoring people, censoring you, usually you had to go down to the well of the house and you had to receive a whooping. Not like a physical whooping, but a verbal lashing. People lashed out at you. And it was meant to be humiliating. Now, they did censure some people back in, I think, the first Trump term or the last couple of years. And anymore, they just issue a strongly worded statement. I hope that Speaker Johnson brings back the old-fashioned censure and does televise this thing and let Al Green, the fool as he is, know that he's an asswipe. That's right, I said it. He's an asswipe. And I may be insulting the toilet paper at that point. That's how despicable that human being is. But again, I'll let the good Lord sort him out. He's a child of God, and I just hope he gets his heart right. I didn't want to be too judgmental. All right, it's time to do the meme roulette here. I got some things I didn't get to, but appreciate you all being here. I mentioned homeswithsherry.com. Don't forget homeswithsherry.com for all your real estate. Now's the time. If you've been thinking about listing, let Sherry walk you through and tell matter of fact, she'll help you an evaluation. Hey, your house is ready to go. Or, hey, if you want to get listed quick, she can help you kind of figure out what to do and handle the staging if you need it staged, and get ready. Because as I said, the sooner you list your home, my friends, you've been thinking about moving. A lot of folks moving out of state. They can't handle this Polish economy here. I don't want you to leave, but you can still watch me anywhere. But now call Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com, and just talk about the strategy. And again, the sooner you get listed with Sherry, the inventory is lower. That means your chances and are selling quickly and getting a good deal going to be excellent. But hey, if you're thinking of buying right now, Sherry can start keeping the eye out on the inventory as it increases for what you want. So now's a great time to call her, homeswithsherry.com. All right, it's time for Meme Roulette. This is where we spin this little cheap wheel. And we, by the way, Producer Chad, we recorded this last night. If you didn't see it, let's play the video. This is the kid. This is what the Democrats couldn't stand for. And this is what I opened the show. And I apologize we didn't do this earlier. I forgot that I didn't mark it down that we had the video. This is the moment that President Trump actually gave a speech, and in giving his speech, he recognized a kid that had President Trump gave a speech and recognized a kid that had a cancer survivor, and he wanted to be a law enforcement officer. He recognizes this. Democrats sat for this. I had tears in my eyes, to be quite honest. But watch this, and I'll tell you, if Democrats can't stand for this, Democrats are really faulty human beings. I hate to say it. Play it, Producer Chad.
Gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police. His name is DJ Daniel. He is 13 years old, and he has always dreamed of becoming a police officer. But in 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live. That was more than 6 years ago. Since that time, DJ and his dad have been on a quest to make his dream come true, and DJ has been sworn in as an honorary law enforcement officer actually a number of times. The police love him, the police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service.
So there you have it. That's the moment. And the kid that got the West Point appointment, his eyes went wow as well. He wanted to be there, and Dems couldn't stand there. And I'll sit here and I'll lay it out there again. If you're a Dem out there lurking in the shadows watching, your party and your party leaders embarrassed you and embarrassed America last night. Again, you don't have to like Trump. You can have political disagreement, but when you can't celebrate a cancer survivor having that moment, then you are a despicable individual. I hate to say it because there's some things you ought to be able to come together for. All right. It's nice weather out, isn't it? Beautiful, glorious weather outside. Well, it's not always going to be glorious. It's going to get hot. It gets cold. Don't forget 1 hour heating and air conditioning. They're great friends of the program. I like having them come to my house twice a year, get the tune up on the AC, make sure there's no problems lurking in the shadow. There's no service engine soon when it comes to your air conditioning or your furnace in cold weather in Colorado is not done yet. So if you're in Colorado, the I-25 corridor, even the Eastern Plains, they have a large service area, and they can also help you with your plumbing and also help you with your electricity. 1hourheatandair.com/Jimmy Lakey, 855-1-HOUR. And then one more shout out to one of our friends of the program. I want to give it to Lehman Lewis Financial Group. I've been watching the markets. You've been watching the markets. I have friends yesterday saying, well, the market's been way, way down. And if you're not sure how those markets, and you've maybe been trying to go your own way on your investments in your retirement, and you say, well, you know what, I need some experts to handle this and watch over it because markets can be volatile and I need to make sure that I'm positioned right. Go to LehmanLewis.com, Lehman Lewis Financial Group, Josh Lewis, Alicia Lewis, great friends, family owned and operated anywhere. That's not just the I-25 corridor here in Colorado. If you're in another state, LehmanLewis.com, they'll be glad to help you. And again, you don't have to navigate the world into retirement and make sure have somebody, they'll help you. Because they want you to retire, and they want your retirement to be like, peace out, I'm done. And they want you to have retirement peace, and they can help you do that. So again, if you've been trying to navigate that by yourself, or you want a second set of eyes on what you do have, LehmanLewis.com, Josh Lewis, Alicia Lewis, a great team at Lehman Lewis Financial Group, based here in Colorado, but they're take care of you wherever you're at under the sound of my dulcet tones. When you call the office, make sure you say, hey, Jimmy Lakey, I watch him on the inner tubes, the inner Googles, I watch him out there. And he's a fantastic fella, and I love Jimmy. Just tell him how much you love me. And we appreciate all of our sponsors of the program. And by the way, if you'd like information on that, info@jimmylakey.com. All right, I'm going to do the meme roulette. A lot of you wait for that. But I did not yesterday, with the excitement of the speech, I realized I did not hit the final post on the Shane Jenkins interview. I'm going to do that. That's the J6 prisoner. We'll play another highlight of that tomorrow. It's not up. If you're a Patreon subscriber, I apologize. I did not hit the final button. I've had a lot of distractions. Producer Chad can tell you it's been chaotic for me the last few days. But I'll get that put up today. As a matter of fact, that'll be my priority after the show to get that up for you. And Shane Jenkins at J6. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. All right, here we go. Meme roulette. We have the cheap globe. We go around the globe. We steal memes. Shamelessly steal memes. Around the world we go. We steal the memes from where we don't know. Let's see where the first one is. Here's a little explainer about Vladimir Putin. Isn't it amazing they called Donald Trump a Russian agent? George Bush let me, says Putin, invade Georgia. Hillary Clinton sold me uranium. Barack Obama did nothing when I took Crimea. Joe Biden sat idle as I invaded Ukraine. Donald Trump hasn't let me do a damn thing, yet somehow the media has convinced Americans that Trump is my asset. Putin says this is good for me. It is. That narrative that Trump's a Putin asset is actually good for Putin, but it's not really based in truth. Okay, here we go. Round and round the world we go. We steal the memes from where we don't know. Go ahead, producer Chad. Somebody caption this. Does anybody know? Is that the guy from MASH cross-dressing? Is what producer Chad wanted to know. Look at that. I mean, again, this is if you had to take your mother or grandmother out looking like that, you would say, could we sit at different booths, honey? That's pitiful. And what I don't know what's worse, the drapes she's wearing on her, the jacket or whatever, or the color of hair. And by the way, the ladies wore pink and the Black Caucus wore black. It all had symbolisms, and some of you had their Ukrainian ties on, and everybody held up signs made by Joe Biden's discarded popsicle sticks. We saw that. What does that represent? The pink rep was stood up for women, right? Or the Black Caucus all wore black. They're all symbolisms, and I'm not sure what that's a symbol of other than just pure ugliness. I mean, she's one of God's creatures. I understand. Bless her heart, as we say in the South, but whew, I don't know what that is. I don't know. What fashion style is that? Is it... Anyway, caption the photo. I'll do this. I'm going to put that up on the Facebook page today and ask you to caption it. Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. What is that? I don't know. It could be a character from the MASH series. Around the world we go. From where we steal the memes, no one knows. This is a powerful statement last night. Did you catch this one? This was, again, just the fact you have to say this is disturbing to convince Democrats, but a Heritage Foundation, we steal from them. No child is born in the wrong body. Donald Trump's last night quote, "My message to every child in America is that you are perfect the way God made you." Let that sink in. That's probably the devils that control that other side of the aisle probably are shirking right now to hear the fact that, first of all, God made him and made you perfect. Fearfully and wonderfully made. I think that's in the Bible. Around the world where we go, here we go. Social media explodes after Democrats do not stand for a 13-year-old cancer survivor. This just shows the heartless, godless Democrat Party. And you know what I would do? You should call. I mean this sincerely. Today would be a good day to call the office of your senator or your congressperson if they're a Democrat and ask them why they're so godless and heartless to a 13-year-old. Let them know that you noticed last night that John Hickenlooper and Marble Mouth Bennett, why don't you call their office and say, I noticed your godless pouting last night, but when you can't applaud a 13-year-old cancer survivor and you can't applaud a boy getting a West Point appointment, then you were deranged and you're mentally ill and you're spiritually oppressed and you're not worthy of the office you hold. I mean that. You should really call your members of Congress that are Democrats and sat on their asses last night and acted like ass wipes and were worse than toilet paper. You want to let them know that you saw exactly how they behaved last night. And I'm in Colorado. John Hickenlooper, who's a worthless barmaid. I mean, the guy created a brewery and somehow parlayed it into some funny television commercials to become the mayor of Denver and then the governor. And then he became there's nothing, he's a geologist with nothing against geologists, but there's nothing spectacular about John Hickenlooper. Michael Bennett is a guy that doesn't like Colorado much. Here we go. Round around the world we go. Where we land, no one knows. We steal a meme. And we go here. Let's do it. Are we out? We milked the meme machine dry. I think we milked it dry, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize that I know you're sad. No, we got to go. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to be here with you this morning. Don't forget, follow on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. Until we meet again, may God bless you. May God bless America. Patreon.com/Jimmy Lakey. God bless you. God bless America. Jimmy Lakey, peace. I'm out of here.